Empaths often are that kind soul in a workplace when they're attached to government or institutions. And because of that, they have certain experiences. So let's just talk about it. It's like they leave the family and step into the world and let me go. But when the empath leaves the family, what I want to say, they step into the world and they assume the pain will stop, but it doesn't. It just changes uniforms. At home, at home it was the gossip and scapegoating. In the world, it's the system, a maze of policies, hierarchies, and hidden loyalties that prize efficiency over empathy and obedience over awareness. The empath enters these places in schools, government offices, hospitals, military bases, believing that sincerity will speak louder than politics. But soon they learn that systems aren't built for sincerity, they're built for control. So, since systems will not recognize our sensitivity as a strength, something that they can use, because institutions run on measurable outputs. The empath runs on emotional insight. That's an immediate conflict. Where the empath sees people, the system sees positions. Where the empath hears pain, the system hears complaints. It's not personal, it's structural. Systems reward those who comply, not those who care. So the empath by nature stands out. Their tone is softer, their questions deeper, their ethics harder to compromise. And in environments where survival depends on emotional detachment, compassion becomes rebellion. Now, this bureaucracy can drain the empath because every empath who's worked inside a rigid institution knows this fatigue, the exhaustion of constantly reading rooms full of unreadable faces, the unspoken politics, the moral compromises, the quiet conformity that's dressed up as professionalism. They try to keep their light intact, but paperwork replaces purpose and protocol replaces humanity. And they start to sense a quiet war between what the system requires and what their spirit knows is right. That's when burnout sets in. Not just physical exhaustion, but moral exhaustion. They begin to feel like they're betraying themselves just to collect a paycheck. In government systems, empathy is often mistaken for weakness. The empath sees how policy impacts people, how red tape creates real suffering. But when they speak up, they're told to follow procedure. They watch leaders discuss citizens as data points while ignoring their cries for justice. The empath becomes the conscious in a machine that's lost its soul. They often face retaliation for telling inconvenient truths. Whistleblowers, reformers, human rights activists, most of them are empaths who couldn't keep quiet while others turned away. And the system knows it. That's why it tries to silence them through paperwork, right? And isolation and accusation. In the military, emotional awareness can feel like a liability. The empathic soldier senses fear, grief, moral conflict, emotions that training tries to suppress. They carry not only their own trauma, but the unspoken pain of others. They become the unofficial counselor, the quiet listener in the barracks, the one who feels everything the others are trying to bury. They may be decorated for courage, but inside they're bleeding spiritually because they're forced to harden what was once designed to heal. When they return home, they struggle with the dual identity, the disciplined defender and the broken healer. The world calls it PTSD. The empath calls it too much humanity in places that reward numbness. Systems use a quiet form of gaslighting. They say don't take it personal, be professional, follow the chain of command. But what they really mean is don't feel. The empath is trained out of their natural responses. They begin to mistrust their intuition. They learn to silence the warning in their gut because procedure says otherwise. And when the damage is done to people, to ethics, to communities, they're left questioning whether they were the problem for caring too much. Systems collapse without a conscience. Empaths hold the emotional infrastructure that keeps institutions humane. They're the ones who notice when policy becomes cruelty, when loyalty becomes corruption, when structure becomes control. They are the quiet stabilizers, the teachers who refuse to fail, students they believe in, the nurses who stay late to comfort the dying, the officers who refuse an unethical order. Without them, systems become mechanical, efficient, but soulless. The tragedy is that the system exploits their loyalty while scorning their heart. The beauty is that they keep showing up anyway, not because the world deserves it, but because empathy doesn't retire. Here's the paradox: the empath cannot escape the system entirely. The goal isn't withdrawal, it's navigation. You can witness dysfunction without carrying it. Not every injustice demands your emotional energy. Some require your strategy. Empathy doesn't mean saying yes to everything. It means knowing where your yes will have the most healing power, and where it will simply feed a machine. Detach after each day, decompress, return to your essence before returning to your duty. Empaths burn out because they confuse service with surrender. When the system refuses reform, empaths build new ones. That's how every major social shift began. Truth tellers creating alternative spaces where compassion wasn't punished. The abolitionist, the reformer, the healer, the artist, the soldier turned peacemaker. They all understood that empathy is not weakness, it's leadership. Empaths often end up in unofficial positions of authority, mentoring, guiding, protecting. They are the soul's diplomats in a world obsessed with power. There comes a point when the empath realizes the system isn't just external, it's internal. All the conditioning to stay quiet, to overserve, stay late, to not make waves, those are internalized controls. The true rebellion begins when the empath reprograms their own operating system, when they stop needing permission to feel, when they stop apologizing for their insight, when they start leading from intuition, even inside environments that worship logic. That's how transformation begins. One awakened empath at a time, moving within the system like light through cracks. Empaths inside systems aren't accidental, they're a sign. Now, they're the conscious planted in corrupted frameworks. So their presence is both a test and a remedy. They expose what power tries to hide. They soften what hierarchy tries to harden, and they bring morality into machinery. The system doesn't reward them, but history remembers them. Every revolution, every reform, every change of heart began because one empath refused to adapt to cruelty. That's the divine paradox. They seem powerless, yet they change everything. To every empath working in cold systems, you were not sent there to fit in. You were sent to humanize it. One decision, one boundary, one act of quiet courage at a time. Thank you for visiting my channel. Stay covered, stay conscious, stay undefeated. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.